Okay, good evening. Good evening. So this is part 2. Last week we started. What I did with the sheet was I took those parts which we didn't cover and put it on. There was one line that we covered but part of it. We'll pick up from that, and then I added on the new topics, and we'll see if we can cover as much, if all, of the topics that are on the sheet tonight. As last week, there's not a lecture; it's a shiur that we could have back and forth questions. So last week we saw an interesting concept. We talked about the standards in Kashrut, that there are different opinions. People think, oh, everything in Kashrut is all politics and money and stuff like that. And sometimes there are things that go on that are not so pretty. But there are legitimate issues and different standards. And there's nothing wrong with that. And last thing we left off with was the concept of minimal standard is something called din. There's something called din, basic halacha, which applies not in kashrut, but in every area of the Torah. What is din? And then what is considered lifnim, above the din? And what you need to do is to be a scholar, or to speak to a scholar, and to say, what is the basic halacha? In any single case, I want to keep the basic halacha that I need to. And then I'll choose if what? If I want to do more than that.
So, sometimes Psak might be the kula against a whole lot of things. Are you going to say that's din?
So you have to know case by case. What is basic din? When I'm being lenient, and then sometimes there's room to be lenient, and when I'm going to be stringent. And really, it's not always black and white, not always. And it really depends on the person and his or her rabbi establishing what's din. But that's the basic demand, din. And there are times that one could be lenient. And times that stringency might be considered to be a good thing. Now, regarding that topic from a philosophical standpoint, on Thursday nights in Mesilat Yesharim Shiur, for the last week and the next 2-3 weeks, we're studying that topic, because Mesilat Yesharim actually talks about this topic, about stringency, when one should run after a stringency. So for those interested more in the philosophical aspect and the moral aspect, when should I be running after stringency? That's Thursday night, the next couple of weeks, 8:40 to 9. But that's basically our chiyuv is din. What's my obligation? And then there's sometimes where it might be very good to go above din. And sometimes it might be fine to do din, and there might be times that, no, I can even be lenient less than that in certain situations. Okay. So this last point, what I took from the sheet, certain points that we covered are not on the sheet. And then this point we were in the middle of, so I put this on, added on a few more details, and now let's go through. Okay, so we saw the concept of hadron by kashrut. The term hadron is not really in the Shulchan Aruch by kashrut. It's really by where? By Hanukkah, but everyone has borrowed that term, and they use it for different things. So we learned about Tfilat Kelim, which we're going to hopefully get to soon in detail. Mashkiach Tamidi, whether Mashkiach is always there or not. So that might consider to be a higher level, even though din is you have someone walking in and out on you in the restaurant. You might come in at 6 in the morning. You might come in at 7 at night. You might come in 2 in the afternoon, and you don't know. So that's the din. Person says, you know what? I want to have someone there more often. That's a higher level of hashgacha. You could just avoid more problems that way. So kol hakavod. But it's not the din. It's just a higher standard to have that.
In some places, the mashkiach insists on it because the owner is not.
Yes, that's another factor also. Is there reliability from the owner or not? Or it's a constant struggle where this owner is only looking to make a buck and there's nothing to do with Yirat Shamayim. He doesn't care about it. He himself is treif, and he was only doing this because he has to, so that is another factor to be taken into account. That is true. Good point. Okay, at the Mechira, we spoke about every 7th year. Halak B'lat Meat, we spoke about last week as well, that which is a very good example of din. So the Shulchan Aruch says absolute in terms of din, you need to have halak meat, which means the lungs are smooth, totally smooth. That's din. The Ramah says, here's a great example of the din measurement, where the Ramah says there are those who are lenient, that even if it's not halak, but there are sirchot with it's hard to say, call it a scab. It's not really a scab on the lung, and that covers up any hole there, and therefore it's kosher, it's fine. And the Ramah says that someone who eats it, yesh al milismo, he has who to rely on. So what is the Ramah saying there? The Ramah seems to be saying that then it would be best to have halak, but you have who to rely on. And many times the Ramah will say such a thing. You have who to rely on to be lenient. So it seems like it would be better one notch up, but there's what to rely on, which is a legitimate standard as well, especially when that is the custom. The Ramah seemed to be saying in Europe 500 years ago, many were lenient to have non-halak mi, v'yesh al mi lismoch, they have who to rely on. Here in Ramah Beit Shemesh, I don't think, you could tell me better, in the markets, I don't think there's any meat that's not halak meat, as far as I know. In other communities, there might be more clientele for that. And you have many communities where more traditional type, where they're not going to spend the extra money, so that makes perfect sense. If it's cheaper to have non-halak meat, that makes perfect sense to have that, because then that's a standard that's allowed, and it's more accessible to people, so it makes perfect sense. And you have certain communities where the meat will be not halak, and for Ashkenazim, especially those who are just keeping a very basic standard, it makes perfect sense for the Rabbanut there to be totally fine with the cheaper non-halak meat. Okay?
In the United States, things changed over the years because when I was young, there were no agreements between the kosher and non-kosher slaughtering houses. So many companies would give you not glatt kosher, they would give you kosher because they had to examine stuff, they had to, save a buck here and there. Otherwise, they were out of
Right.
Now, the agreement is with every single kosher slaughtering house, there's a direct agreement with a non-kosher slaughtering house that they will take any meat that's been slaughtered.
Even if it's just not halak, they'll pass it on to them.
They'll pass it on.
You see, there's more halak in the American market.
Right. So there's only halak in the American market.
Really? There's no such thing as not halak? Wow.
That's what I was told.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah, you have to have a pulse on what's going on in the market as well.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
just one question. The decision of whether the animal is halak or not, whether the lungs are smooth or not, is somebody putting his hands in and checking, yes?
Hand in check, they might
so
blow it
under
up.
what circumstances do we
Well,
always
that's
have to
just
rely
check.
on that person?
What?
We always rely on that person.
Yeah,
What
for
happens
sure.
If that person himself.
Very
is
good
not
point.
even
There are
relying.
times that the meat might be called not halak because they're extra stringent. They don't want to put it in the halak category, but it doesn't mean for sure it's not.
Right.
Okay.
I was asking now, I was saying a certain hechsher might say their checker said it was halak. Now we're just saying, well, they could have chosen a guy who was not a Yarei Shamayim maybe.
Well, then that's a good point. We're going to get into when we get into Mashkiach in 2b. We'll talk about that. We're basically all relying on Eid Echad, and we're relying on in any kashrut. Who are you relying on? The bottom line is you're relying on whoever's on the top of the totem pole. Okay. In our city, his name is Rav Mursia. He's the head of the Rabbanut of Kashrut here, and we're relying on him. That whatever is going on in all the establishments under the Rabbanut Beit Shemesh, which 15, 20 years ago, many of us moved here, was about 3 places. That's all that existed. Now it's literally hundreds. We're relying on him. That he's the bottom line, that he is going to appoint people that are going to be honest, Yerei Shamayim, and he's going to give them the standards. So we are relying on that, correct. And if you go to Tel Aviv, you're ultimately relying on one of the most famous rabbis in our generation. Who's that? Rabbi Lau, not the chief rabbi, the former chief rabbi's father, that he oversees the standards there. He's the bottom line there. I'm sure he appointed someone who is overseeing everything. We're relying on Rabbi Lau that he appointed someone who's Yerei Shamayim, a God-fearing Jew. Okay, so just finish up this list.
Rabbi, the glatt only has to do with beef.
Yes, meat, good points. Meat, not chicken, correct. Good point.
Chicken is never really glatt.
Right. Correct. And then when you see the terms Mahadran Glad there, that's more just a term that's used, okay? I don't even know is Glad ever used. There's a term ever thrown around here or in Chutz La'aretz for like a dairy restaurant, Glad. It's Glad kosher. Well, obviously the term is...
It's like Mahadran.
It's like Mahadran, exactly. It's just a term that became used. You have a denotation or a formal definition of a word, then you have a connotation. The connotation is, it means a high standard. Okay, finish up this list. Chalavakum.
For the most part, in America, it means that they're not open on Shabbos.
Well, listen, it wasn't that many years ago where when we were growing up, kosher style delis, right? Things, Baruch Hashem, moved along, and you have to always have your finger on the pulse what the term means in your neighborhood. And with the Rabbanut and the local Hashkach organization, your neighborhood, Chalav Akum, we mentioned last week, Avkat Chalav is powder, where there's even some who are stringent on Chalav, and they don't rely on the government supervision. That was Rav Moshe. It wasn't Rav Moshe's original idea. The Chazon Ish brings it down as well, that if the milk, any milk, the Gemara says, that's not supervised, we're afraid it was from a pig or some treif animal, a camel. Down south, there is milk from camels today. So I think they have milkshakes, if I'm not mistaken. You could Google it if you want, but I heard that you can milk down south. There's somewhere you can have milkshakes from camels. So there was a gezerah from the rabbis, you cannot have any milk that's not under Jewish supervision. And the question is government supervision enough? Chazon Ish mentioned it. Rav Moshe is one who's famous for it, that he said fine, that it's acceptable. He said a yeshiva trying to establish a high level and teach the children chinuch, that you go out of your way for kashrut, said they should buy the golden flow. That was the brand 60 years ago in America of Chalav Yisrael. They should buy the golden flow, even though it's more expensive for the yeshiva. But he said that's an example of din and above the din. That's a classic example. Rav Moshe said din, it is fine, but he still said it would be better. There's different rumors and legends about Rav Moshe, but that's what he wrote there. Some want to say even if you don't accept the leniency with milk itself, some want to say that the powdered milk that is known as Tzvi Pesach Frank, the great rabbi of Jerusalem from 60 years ago, said that there may be a leniency of kat chalav, that that's not under the decree of chalav akum. And therefore you'll see in a lot of products here that it has a Rabbanut Kashrut seal on it. La'ochle what? For those who eat? Avkat chalav, the powder of the dairy.
But it adds akum as well, no?
What?
It adds the word akum as well.
Yeah, chalav, what did I say? Avkat chalav akum. Thank you. Avkat chalav akum. Avkat is the powder. Chalav milk. Akum is of a Gentile. So for those who rely on that, and you just have to know if that's something that you're relying on. The Tzvi Pesach Frank, Tzitz Eliezer, mentions that possibility as well. Chalav from Shabbat, there you have automated Shabbat machinery that's milking the cows. And there's those who are lenient for that, to save the animals for sure, and to actually drink the milk afterwards. And there's other factors as well. It comes from so many areas of milk throughout the country. It gets mixed up. You don't even know which milk is from Shabbat, which one is not. And it's batel, nullified. So many are lenient, and a Rabbanut will be fine with such milk. A Mahadran milk, whether the Mahadran is Badat's milk or a Mahadran Tenuva is the biggest dairy, right, company in Israel. So they'll have Mahadran, and they're telling you that milk is not milk that was milked from on Shabbat. It doesn't mean if it's Rabbanut milk you can't eat it, chas v'shalom. They're relying on legitimate opinions, just for you to know the different standards, okay? Butter. So we didn't mention butter last week. Butter is chema, where the dairy decree was against the milk itself and not against the butter, which normally what makes the best butter is happens to be the kosher milks. That's what is used. What?
Actually can't make.
Right, it cannot. You cannot. Maybe they could play around chemically.
In camel's milk.
Correct. So the milk is only made from the kosher milk. The butter is made from kosher milk, and therefore many say that they never made a gezerah, decree on butter, and therefore any butter that's is made from cow's milk, you don't have the restriction of chalav akum. And if it was from government supervision, and there was nothing in there except for the milk, oh yeah, but it's chalav akum. And maybe, I don't want to rely on Rav Moshe's leniency. Some want to say there's nothing to do with Rav Moshe's leniency. There's no takana, there's no gezerah, there's no restriction in the first place. And in the time of the Gaonim, 1,000 years ago, some were strict about that. Okay, so you have this is just examples where someone has the butter, okay, and it's kosher, but it wasn't supervised by a Jew, there's plenty of room to rely on. And the halav also, and the avkat, and you get the chocolate with the, it's imported. These are all legitimate opinions. But a person says, well, I'm not going to have those. It's not a question of I'm holier than thou, and these hashkachas are all business. It's just not true. There are legitimate opinions here, and there's nothing wrong. Someone wants to be stringent, okay, I have to just be a chacham about it. You go ahead and you make someone who relies on these legitimate opinions, but that's unacceptable. These are legitimate opinions. But you look down on someone, he's just being so firm. That's not right either. To me, the more knowledge you have about any area of the Torah, you should be able to respect each other a lot more. I respect him with his stringencies, and he should respect me with my legitimate din. And that's be able to go ahead and get together. And that's how we should always be able to look at all areas, not just kashrut. And then we have a shaila, but we got this, we can just deal with it in a halachic way. And that's it. Now, even whether it's the fact that we're having a shir right now, we don't have a mechitza between the man and the woman. Because the din is that when do you need a mechitza? When? During davening. And when it's not during davening, then there are those who are very stringent and say, no, anytime we have any man and woman gathering together, we're going to have mechitza. We don't have any mixture whatsoever. Mixture can be actually sitting together or even sitting in an open area. And I respect that, that's fine. But we here in Mar HaMor go by din. And the din is what? That during davening, we are separated from mechitza. And if we're having a shir, we're not. And if we finish davening, then we give a drasha. We'll open the mechitza. That's din. And someone is not comfortable with it, that's fine. But chas v'shalom, don't say, well, we're not following din. We're following din. That's the law. Okay, are there some, I want to say, even din would say, no, you cannot have any kind of gathering whatsoever. There are those who will understand din to be more stringent than that, and that's fine. But that's not how we understand it. Yes?
What's the din about butter now? It doesn't matter if it's not a...
So you have butter, some say butter is more lenient than regular milk, similar to the, because butter cannot come from a treif animal, and there are those that say that never was part of the gezerah, the decree of milk from that was not supervised by a Jew. And therefore, even those who don't rely on Rav Moshe by milk may rely on that concept by butter. Once the government says that it's not coming from a pig, then but it's not supervised. It doesn't need to be supervised because it doesn't have. There's no gezerah against butter because it wasn't used. Treif milk wasn't used for butter.
Milk was milked on Shabbos.
Oh.
The milk was milked on Shabbos.
Yes, that's another shaila of milk.
No, when he said it wasn't milk for the butter, it was milked on Shabbos.
Oh, if it's done by Goyim.
Yeah, it could be done on Shabbos.
Yes, they're not doing it for the Jews. They're doing it for the whole market, where we're a small percentage.
But we're allowed to use
Yes.
butter that was made from milk that was milked on Shabbos.
Yeah, just like, yeah.
I thought there's a kosher dairies. Remember the kosher dairy?
Yeah,
They
where
said
they
that they throw away that milk. It's the
the one up in the Golan,
Yeah.
does. Now I don't know that everyone does.
They have to milk the animals, but they don't. The Dafka don't use that milk for anything.
Because that one is milk.
Well, they don't even milk the animals. The animal milks itself. The animal
I mean, the
goes.
automated one. So I'm pretty sure Tenuva has automated, and we'll use that. We'll just have it in the non-Mahadran runs. Okay? But a cottage cheese is another example of gavina, hard cheese. There was a decree against hard cheese that needs supervision, and there's no way around that. Hard cheese needs proper supervision for a whole nother reason. Anyone know why? Because how is hard cheese made?
Because of the mummy, you have to add something to make it.
Right, because it was made in...
It was made with the rennet.
The rennet from the animal, that could be treif, and therefore the rabbi said it needs to have Jewish proper supervision, okay? And therefore hard cheese needs a proper supervision, which of course we have, Baruch Hashem. There are those that say that doesn't apply to cottage cheese, a soft cheese, okay? And therefore that would not be under that decree, and there's different levels on that as well, okay? All the cheeses that we have here that are sold in the Mamapei Shemesh, they're all, I think, Mahadran cheeses. I don't think any cottage cheese is relying on the fact that it wasn't overseen by a Jew. I don't think it was relying, but just you should be familiar with all these different topics. Okay.
That's interesting. Apparently in the Shuk there's a cheese shop, which that chap, Yechiel Spiro, rails against. He says that the people just go and buy there, and they don't check the hechsherim, and that there are many, many cheeses in that shop that are not kosher.
Wow. Very good, very good. So I don't know the name of the place. I'm not saying good or bad against it, but now you can understand if someone has issues with the cheese needs a proper hashgacha. A hard cheese, there was a decree that it could have been made with the rennet from a treif animal.
What?
Even if it's kosher.
Right, so therefore it needs hashgacha, and it needs, so therefore that is a different level than regular milk, than cottage cheese, and then powdered. Cheese is the most severe in all the dairy areas, okay? Where there's a decree and it needs to have supervision. So, okay, so do we know all the details now of the different types of cheese? No, just trying to give you a little bit of knowledge to understand that the rabbis made a decree for cheese for sure. Milk, there's different room to be lenient or not. And then have somewhere in between those two is cottage cheese, where some are even more lenient than milk, and avkat halav, the powdered milk. Okay, just to give you an understanding of the range of shitot, and they're all legitimate opinions. They're all legitimate opinions, okay? Moving on. So dealing with one as a different standard, that's a good question, okay? And the next one, serving a guest, food that is a lower, higher standard than one's own, okay? So that could get a little bit tricky, as we all understand, okay? And Be'er Moshe, the Be'er Moshe, so just a 1-minute introduction to the Be'er Moshe. So what is the Be'er Moshe? Who is the Be'er Moshe? Anyone familiar? A great posek passed away about 20 years ago from the holy city of Borough Park.
Brooklyn.
What?
Brooklyn.
Yeah, but Brooklyn's one level. There's a whole new level of Kedusha in Borough Park. So he was from Hungary, a big posek from Hungary. He came from there, from the Chassam Sofer, that whole heritage. And so he says the following. This is Be'er Moshe, Chelek Hey, the 5th volume. Siman Kuf Lamed Hey, 135, part 11. Masha Katavti al Divrei Riva, but Masha Katavti Ein Safek Asisha Misha Norg Isser B'Davar V'Chaver Mekel. One is lenient, and one is stringent. So now, this concept, I hope, is totally comfortable with this. There's nothing wrong if someone is lenient with one of these topics we discussed, or any other topic, and someone's more stringent. I have regular milk. I have the chocolate that has avkat halav in it, that has the powdered milk, and you don't. And you're good and I'm good. We're all good. We're totally fine. And there's nothing wrong. No one's more religious. God only judges religious level. No one else judges. I mean, we all do, unfortunately. But none of us are real judges, only one judge. But just in terms of standards, I have this standard, you have that standard, and we have total respect for each other. So what do I do in terms of serving you and serving me? Ain't safek, misha nog issa b'davar. If you hold that something is asur, v'chaver meka, and someone is lenient, and you are hosting, you who is lenient is hosting someone else, asur laha'oser lahoshia lahamekel davar zeh. So you know he doesn't eat that. So you eat regular rabbanut, non-halak. And no one should ever use the term rabbanut to mean what? Non-halak. Because rabbanut can have two types. Rabbanut halak, rabbanut not halak. So you shouldn't equate. I have rabbanut meat. And therefore what? What does rabbanut mean? Rabbanut just means that rabbanut overseeing it. Rabbanut oversee two types of meats. So I have meat. I shouldn't even use the word rabbanut. I have non-halak meat. Whoever is giving the supervision. I have a non-halak meat. That's what I do for whatever reason. And I know you're coming over and you eat only halak. So should I give you non-halak meat when I know you only eat halak meat? So what's the obvious answer? No. So he says, of course, She'ino baror kimat baror lahefech. Ude bechulin ita ho psuke hagoret ita keso kamei. So he says, Demor bezed laheter mishum v'hainu v'harim forced to shari me'acha sheish lahamati ami lismoch. Actually, I jumped ahead with the case. Okay, I jumped ahead of him. He's saying, I hold that it's also, I'm the one who doesn't. I'm serving. And I do not eat non-halak meat. But you do, and you ask me for that. Can you give me that meat? Can you pass that chocolate? We're eating together. And you're asking me to give you something that I don't eat. So can I do that? Can I pass that to you? Can I serve that to you? Can I go pick up? Oh, you're going shopping? Oh, can you please pick up the fruits from Diovazol, from Best? And it's what year, of course? Our favorite year on the calendar. Shemitah year. Okay? And Shemitah year. So can I go ahead? Okay, Danny, can you please pick up for me the fruits there? And I know the fruits now are in what season? Heter Mechira season. If I'm going out for you. So can I go ahead and pick up those fruits for you? They're Heter Mechira fruits. So he's saying, Meforish to Shari, Me'achash lahach mi'amilismoch, lahamatir, the one who is lenient has who to rely on. Alpha Pisha Moshe Eno Semech Latzmal Matirim. I don't hold by that, let's say, but you do. So I am not giving you treif. I'm not giving you something that you're not allowed to eat. You're allowed to eat. So there's no problem. So of course I can go ahead. And let's say I picked up, by mistake, meat. I live in, I'm only saying Ranana because I remember once I was in Ranana at relatives' house, and I saw the meat. I saw the meat there, and I think it said non-halak. I don't remember what the term was. And the people are non-halak. So they're eating non-halak, okay, and that's who they rely on. That's who they rely on. They rely. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry about that. So that's fine. So can you please pass me the meat? Of course I can pass them the meat. They're relying on the Ramah who says there's who to rely on. That's who they rely on. That's din. Okay? So it says Mefurash to do that. So he says, and I saw the Ksav Sofer, who's a descendant from the Chassam Sofer in Hungary. Not coincidental, that's his whole tradition, the Be'er Moshe. And also he comes out that way. So that someone who does not hold by the lenient opinion can pass over to someone who holds by the lenient opinion. That's fine. Okay? So to me that's a very important point, not just from pure halacha, but in terms of how to relate to each other. But once you understand the first part of the shir, all the different standards, and this is okay, and this is okay, and this is okay, so then we're all good. We're all good.
Because he said other way as well. He said that a person who eats lenient should not pass that to the person who's eating.
Yes, so and the other way around as well, you shouldn't give someone something which you know, of course, they don't eat. That's not a good host. It's not nice. If he is on a restricted diet for health reasons, you're not going to go ahead and serve him the high-fat food that he doesn't eat. So you're not going to give the food that he doesn't eat, right? Also, so it goes both ways. Okay.
What about the case where you go to someone's house who's normally lenient? I don't know. Let's say you're invited to a simcha and they're having a kashrut that you don't normally rely on. But you've been invited to the house, you're invited to the simcha, and they want you to partake in the simcha. And you know it's kosher, right? Or you might not rely on it. Can you partake of that, or is this something?
Excellent question. So Rabbi has an unbelievable tshuva. Fascinating. Rabbi Yosef, we can spend 2 hours on it, but we're going to spend 2 minutes. It deserves a lot more time. His case was 50 years ago. They asked about a Sephardi who only eats what kind of meat? Halak. Only eat halak. And he's invited over to a friend whose friend is Ashkenaz and does not necessarily eat halak. And it's a delicate, doesn't want to get into it with his friend. It's not, sometimes your friend will say openly, oh, do you eat this, do you not eat that? That was an uncomfortable case over there, and therefore Rabbi said the following, but a Sephardi cannot eat non-halak. Ashkenazim, there's room to play around, but Sephardim not. The Shulchan Aruch does not mention the lenient opinion even. Only the Ramah, Ashkenazic posik does. And he has an unbelievable tshuva, which gets back to what Stanley asked before. He says that you can eat over. The Sephardi can eat over his house. If it's not a comfortable thing to start asking, this not you can eat. Why? Because he says there's a double safek. Two safek. One, that it's true the Shulchan Aruch paskins that we only eat halak, but there are opinions that say not. So, of course, ideally we follow Shulchan Aruch. And he says, but even according to Shulchan Aruch, they only eat halak. Who says that I'm eating meat that's not halak? It's very possible that they go through so much meat, and anytime there's any doubt that there's any lesion, adhesion on the lung, right? Oh, it's not halak. When really, halachically, it could be considered what? Halak, and he brings in the term sfeika. Okay? So he found room to be lenient over there in a case of tzorech.
And it's also when you don't know.
Right.
Like if you go into someone's house and you don't normally have heti mechira, and the
Correct.
lady comes and says, "Rabbi, speed up the plant," please have some.
Exactly right. So then, yeah, I think it would be, I would not feel comfortable just giving a blanket answer to that. I think it really depends case by case on the nature of the friendship. To me, anyone who would learn a shir like we're learning now, we should be so comfortable with each other. Oh, okay. I only this meat, but you don't? Okay, so I'll just get that meat for you. Because no one's good or bad over here. There's no good, bad. We're all fine. We are all fine, okay? Anyone who is so far on this list would be taking advantage, so to speak. But in the positive, I don't be taking advantage of a negative connotation. Literally, taking advantage is a fine term. And relies on all these leniencies. That's fine. There's nothing wrong. So it should be that if you're making a lunch date or going to invite someone over, you can both just discuss. But let's say it's not that case. It's a parent and a child, and as time went on, the child got, quote, more from, but it could mean he's not going crazy. So we have to really have a case by case, okay? Maybe if it's not comfortable to talk it over, you could just have the chicken and maybe not the meat. It would be like a case by case. But if it's with grandma at the table, and grandma knows every single piece of food that's going into your mouth, she's watching who eats what. And there's no playing around. If you didn't eat that meat, she will be grilling you on it. So there's different factors to know. Maybe we call that shat hadchak, which is another important term, Doug, and I'm glad you asked it. What's shat hadchak mean? You have a pressing situation where I may normally not rely on the lenient opinion, but in a pressing situation, chacham einav barosho, a person has to be wise, and now maybe in this case I will rely on that opinion. Because it's a legitimate opinion. It's just normally and stringent. And sometimes in pressing situations, shat hadchak. So you have to discuss with the Rav, what do I mean by a shat hadchak, a pressing situation? Right? So I would say those are the factors, yeah.
So if someone is lenient on certain issues and is inviting someone over who's more stringent, is it ever an issue that the person has in the past cooked things?
Well, that's a great question. Great question. So that's a very, very good question. What about the kalim? That's a nice question. What about all the pots and pans?
Wasn't really not kosher.
Oh. So to me, that's the bottom line. It really depends on how you view all these lenient opinions. To me, the more you learn, the more welcoming you could be, and the more understanding you could be. To me, these are all kosher. In none of these examples that I gave is the pot or pan treif. So I don't normally eat that. But I look at the kalim, your kalim, as treif. No. And therefore, if I'm eating a meal and you as a good host say, oh, Ruvain, do you eat this kind of meat? Oh, we're having dairy today, and I'd like to just buy the regular milk. Okay, the halav akum. Or the chocolate that we're having, I normally have chocolate from the imported milk, and it says over there for avkat halav, those who eat. And do you eat it? Oh, you don't eat it? But so that would be good hosting and a good, honest relationship. But the premise is the kalim are not treif. I don't look at it as the kalim. Hopefully the guest doesn't look at the kalim as treif. Are there some opinions that are very strict and will look at another opinion in certain cases as treif? There are. I'm not going to deny it. I guess a classic, what?
No heter mechira one.
The classic example is where you have Rav Kanievsky, Rav Chaim Kanievsky, in Bnei Brak, where in his work Derech Emunah, he does say that heter mechira, selling the land every 7 years, he doesn't look at that as an option. And therefore, if you eat those fruits and vegetables, which were grown by Reuven in Reuven's own farm, where he, quote, sold, Rav doesn't accept that at all. And therefore, those vegetables that he's growing in heter mechira land, which he supposedly sold, but the sale didn't go through, according to Rav Kanievsky, right? It's nothing. Therefore, it is treif. And therefore, the pots and pans are what? Treif. That's his opinion. Does Rosh Hashanah Auerbach say that? No. Rosh Hashanah Auerbach has a whole sefer explaining and defending that position of heter mechira. Rav Kook, of course, it went back hundreds of years before Rav Kook. It was already in Hebron 4 centuries ago. People think this was all created by whom? Rav Kook. He just became associated with it. He certainly held by it. And his son Rav Tzvi Yehuda in the yeshiva held by it at Merkaz Harav. And when some students proposed that maybe we should not have the heter mechira, the vegetables and fruits that are relying on heter mechira, Rav Tzvi Yehuda said, thank you very much for your stringency. We're going to continue to buy Jewish produce, continue to support the Jewish farmers. And thank you for your stringency, but no thanks. Stringency, I'm putting in that word because the other side is not such a simple stringency either. So there are cases where a posek will say about the other side, nothing, non-existent. And that is Rav Chaim Kanievsky, one of the giants of our generation, that will say that. To me, I look at the Rav Kook and Rav Shlomo Zalman and all the others. I unbelievable respect for Chaim Kanievsky. Okay, but in this area, I don't tell someone who does not eat heter mechira that he should view the pots and pans of his neighbor as treif. Okay, but Bnei Brak, I imagine they're going to follow that approach, which they're entitled to. That's fine. Okay.
What if you get invited to someone who's a Spartan and they keep by
Get used to some good harif food. You got to prepare yourself.
good stuff and I want to eat? So do you have to worry that they use Beis Yosef and it's not acceptable?
Well, what would be the problem with Beis Yosef now? Well, now let's get our terms down. When you say Beis Yosef, what do you mean by Beis Yosef?
The Tara brand.
So Beit Yosef, Badat's Beit Yosef, right? So if you remember last week we said Badat's Beit Yosef should not be mixed up with Halak Beit Yosef, right? It's confusing these terms. I'll just mention it quickly. Halak Beit Yosef has nothing to do with Badat's Beit Yosef. It's just a question of trying to keeping us all young. Let's remember all the different terms. Halak Beit Yosef means that this is smooth the meat, halak, according to the standards of the Beit Yosef, who is Rav Yosef Karo, the Sephardic posek from 500 years ago. So you could see halak Beit Yosef by any hashgacha, any slaughterhouse, anywhere in the world, and they might stamp it halak Beit Yosef. It has nothing to do with a specific company. It's just saying the standard here is this is smooth according to Rav Yosef Karo. Okay? Yes. Yeah, because it's halak, according to Rav Yosef, because even though the Ramah can accept non-halak, but Rav Yosef Karo does not. So this is halak according to Rav Yosef Karo. Okay.
Is that the same standard then as glad, the glad on, for the OU or something like that?
Yeah, so they're all saying, these companies are just saying, whoever the ashkach is coming from, if it's from the meat from Uruguay, and it's Rabbanut, and it says halak, we're saying this is the halak meat. OU halak, Rabbanut halak, anyone saying it's halak. Okay? Now you have a specific question. If you're eating by any person, and now they're serving you chickens and meats, but it is halak. It's not the halak difference, but you just, for whatever reason, don't eat that hashkacha. Not because there's a specific black and white standard that they have that's different than that standard. It's not like this is non-halak meat that you eat, and you're serving me non-halak meat. It's not black and white like that. I eat heter mechira, you don't eat heter mechira, so I should not serve you non-heter mechira. That's black and white. What if, no, the standards are all the same, just for whatever reason, my rabbi told me not to eat that hashgacha. I don't know why, but told me not to.
So he said because they're coolers.
So, right.
So you can't eat that meat.
I'm not talking about like a Torah.
Oh. So then what you need to, excellent question. So what you need to know is that as we said, when it's about black and white standards, then it's easy. You're het mechira, not het mechira. Milk, powdered milk, not powdered milk. But what if the company is saying, no, we're doing all that. We're doing all that. And you were told, don't rely on that company. So now, if that's what your rabbi tells you, then, and you don't eat that specific hashgacha, let's say Rabbanut halak meat. So they are saying that their meat is halak. Okay? And if someone doesn't eat it, it's because what they're saying is we don't rely on your claim. Correct?
Basically, yeah.
That's what you're saying. Okay.
So now this gets into a really delicate area, obviously.
This is
Okay.
what's going on in life.
Yeah. Okay. So I happen to be more, I don't know if I'd say lenient. To me, unless you show me something scandalous about the company, okay, I usually assume that you find out what their standards are, and if it's halak, hetem mechira, whatever their standards are of this company, of this hotel, of this restaurant, and if their standards are the standards you want, then you assume they are keeping the standards that they're claiming. You could say, I am naive, or you could say, I rely on a chazaka. I rely on a chazaka, an assumption that what? That the rabbi in charge is a firm Jew, and he's doing his job making sure that his establishments that are under him are to the standards that he claims. Do you hear what I'm saying? So if I would tell you, go to any mechanic you want, bring your car there, he has a cheskes kashrus, and you could rely on him. And when he says, he fills your engine, he doesn't even open it, and he says, you need a new Rosh Manoah, a new engine, and that will be 16,000 shekel, just believe him. He has a musach, he's accredited, and just rely on him. So then you say, Danny Myers, I might ask someone else for advice on mechanics. Thank you very much. But when we talk about halacha, where there's a status of a cheskat kashrut, Rav Morsia, the chief, he's not the chief rabbi, Rav Biton. Rav Biton's over 80, so officially can't be anymore. But in terms of kashrut, Rav Morsia. So I will ask him about any establishment here in Beit Shemesh where someone asks me, can I go to this place? And I say to the person, what are your standards? You eat halak meat, not halak meat. Usually it's not an issue here in Beit Shemesh, but I'll just go over the list. Do you eat hetem mechira? Don't eat hetem mechira. Do you eat chalav akum or not? And then I will ask Rav Morsia about restaurant A or B or C. Or Rav Morsia will send me to the mashkiach of that restaurant. And yes, call me naive, call me what you want. I will assume that they're telling me the truth. And it's to see if the standards match. Okay? So that's about a specific restaurant, about a hotel. Someone called me about some place in Jerusalem today. Can I go in there? I'm not even going to eat there. They already came with the press. I'm not going to eat in such a place because it's Yerushalayim Rabbanut. Parv or dairy, whatever. It wasn't even meat. And I said, well, let's talk to the mashkiach and just find out what the standards are. And that's it. And yes, when I speak to the mashkiach, I will assume he's keeping the standards he's claiming. Because I'm assuming that the chief rabbi of Jerusalem, who's the chief rabbi of Jerusalem? It's Rabbi.
No.
Is it Rav Amar? No, who used to be the chief rabbi of Israel. Oh no, and that's Rav, what's the name now? Yes, I think Rav Stein is the Ashkenazic and Rav Amar is the Sephardic. Now ultimately the chief rabbis are the bottom line of the town. And Baruch Hashem, Jerusalem is no longer a town, it's a city, almost 1 million people. I am relying that they're overseeing the standards, and therefore I will call the mashgiach, please tell me your standard in A, B, C, D. And if it works, it works. So the Badatz, Beit Yosef, okay? So as far as I know, their standard is not less than Ashkenazim. Okay, there's
What
nothing.
rules did they talk?
What?
What are the
So we'd have to ask the people who are saying, what exactly leniencies are you saying that they rely on? Where it's don't forget, when we talk about some leniencies where they're saying there's some din, there's some law, not a stringency that they keep. We have to find out. But as far as in terms of Padatz Beit Yosef, it certainly is halak. Okay, is the claim that the chicken has less people checking the legs than others? It's possible. But once again, I'm relying on what? That the family overseeing it, and which family oversees it? Whose family is in charge? For Rabbi Yosef's family, he has a lot of children. One is a chief rabbi, one is in this area. He's the Rosh Yeshiva there. There were a lot of very big. Rabbi was zoche to raise children who themselves are tremendously chachamim, and I am relying that they are in charge overseeing it, and that they're keeping the standard, an acceptable standard, right? So I rely on that. And therefore, I do assume that an establishment is keeping the standards that they claim, unless someone went ahead and went into the factory, into the plant, and goes in and reveals some scandal, and you check it out, yeah, there's something scandalous going on. But I assume innocent till proven guilty, or kosher till proven not kosher. Yeah.
What about the fact that many of these hashgachas aren't prepared to actually reveal what their standards are in order for you to check?
Okay, so then you have to, if someone came to me with such a question, I would have to look into that. That's funny. Okay, what's the word? Transparency is crucial here. I'm very happy to say that anytime anyone asks me about any hotel, restaurant, catering hall, and I call it the mashgiach, the guy could not be happier to tell me about it. And when you come to the event, please call me, come into the kitchen, and let me show you around. And the guy's like all depressed. And no, I'm only calling for one of my members. I'm not going to be there myself. Oh, chaval. It's like one big Jewish family. I love it. It's beautiful. They want me to come into the kitchen. So I see transparency. Are there scandalous things? Possibly. I was once in one place in 16.
Not being able to measure whether your standards.
Okay, so that to me is funny. That to me is a red line. I agree, but I haven't seen that, and we'd have to check it out. There was one place I was once in 16 years in Israel where I went in to the place in a wedding hall. I said, "Where's the mashgiach? I just want to go over certain things with him." He's on vacation. He's out for 4 days. Wait, it was a meet. It was hundreds of people there. There was a lot of action there. It wasn't a little pizza store with a firm owner that even there, you don't want the owner to know the mashgiach's out for 4 days. So in one time, in hundreds or maybe thousands of inquiries I had over 16 years, that to me was funny. That was an X. And Mark, if you remember, we went, but even that, it wasn't scandalous. Just we thought maybe there could have been more supervision. One of the places we checked out years and years ago in the kitchen that you were using, but it wasn't scandalous there. Just was wondering, is it the standard that we wanted? Really, what it was. This was a scandalous one time, and believe me, you're going to find scandals with which hashgachas? Every single one. How often? Once. It's human nature, but we rely on rove, on the majority, on chazakah, on assumptions. That's what we work with. And what? None of our kitchens, we never messed up. We mess up, okay? I was just discussing not that long ago this evening. This honey, he took this cover from a meat pot, put it on the dairy pot, and this, okay. So I'm not going to eat in your house, because I heard that you took the meat cover and put it on the dairy frying pan. I'm not going to eat by you. Because that's it. We sometimes. But we go by rove, we chazaka, we have assumptions. So if there's something scandalous in an establishment, right? So if someone ever would have called me about that place, I'm not going to say the name of the town because it was a one-time thing, chas v'shalom, to put the rabbanut of that town and give them a negative appearance. I won't even say what town it was. So if you ask me about that specific place, I'll say, oh, I have to do some real research about that place. So if someone's not being transparent, you're right, Stanley.
I'm not talking about an establishment. I'm talking about a whole shwaka.
Okay, so we have to find out about that. And who is it that's saying that they're not being transparent? If someone make that claim to me, I would say, okay, I need to look into that myself. And I'm going to call them up. I'll say, can I come down? I want to find out. Okay? So we have to look in. So tzarachin has to be looked into. Okay, yeah.
We recently were invited to a wedding from friends from making in the States, and they sent us an email saying that it was going to be Rabbanut, and if we have a preference.
Wait, in the States, Rabbanut?
No, they making friends from the States.
Very good. Okay, good.
Said it was going to be Rabbanut, and if we had a preference, we could have Badats.
Okay, good.
We asked for Badats, and I think we made a mistake by doing that.
Oh, interesting. Why?
We were the only people who were served this very noticeable different meal, and they were coming over, do you want plastic silverware? And we were sitting with people we knew, and we felt like we were making a judgmental statement.
Wow, that's a very good point. I would use, the term that I love to use is chumras with chachma. To be machmir, at times stringent with chachma, with wisdom, and it's case by case. So it could be over here, this was fine, now you have to know the case, and what were the leniencies in this Rabbanut place. So obviously in the Bnei Brak world, Heter Mechira is a red line, right? For me, it's not a red line. So I would see case by case, and if that would happen again, so call me, we could discuss such a case, okay? Yeah.
My son-in-law says that all the rabbanuts, I said, the rabbinut in Beit Shemesh is pretty strict, I would think. It's not it's a more, careful rabbinut. He says, well, every rabbinut has to accept anything that's proved in any rabbinut. So therefore, if there's a rabbinut, like, say, Tel Aviv, and they're not so careful on things, and that product comes in here, the rabbinut here must accept it, even if it's below their standards. Is that true?
Below their standards? I'll have to ask Morsi the question. I'll have to ask him. I mean, is there an arrangement like that rabbanuts accept other rabbanuts?
All rabbanuts must accept anything that's proved in any rabbinut.
It could be. And what does that mean below the standard? We have to ask what that means below the standard.
I would question that.
Yeah, but there's nothing even. But it's not a mystery. I could call up.
The law in Israel.
It could be. So fine. But that to me, there's no. I'll call up. You'll email me, and I'll check out a Korban Morsia tomorrow and ask what's the and
So that's why they don't accept rabbinut.
Okay, maybe I'll have to check. There's such a thing. That there's such a thing that there is that policy, and I'll ask, what does that mean? So that means, and what does that mean? A lower standard. Okay, so I have to ask, what does that mean? What does that mean? To me, we could ask, be upfront, communicate with each other, and then find out. Do you hear what I'm saying?
I'd like to know what rabbinut means. What are the standards of rabbinut?
So that's, to me, what I always say. We just call up and ask, go through the list with the rabbi of the town, and ask what a specific case. So I'll ask this question now. Is it the how do you pronounce it? Reciprocity, that I think is the claim. That they have to be reciprocal to each other, and if it's Rabbanut a lot, and that's where you want to get a product from, then it has to be, you can't say, I won't get it because of Kashrut. So let me find out, what does that mean? And then we have to just go back to our list. We go back to our list and say, okay, Morsi, I heard that the Rabbanut Eilat relies on Heter Mechira, but I mean, Rabbanut B'Shemesh does also, and they make it clear. So I'd like to...
Heter Mechira doesn't exist right now.
I'm just giving an example. So we'd have to ask what leniency, but don't forget... So we have to find out. But it's important to know that there are many of our holy brothers here in Israel, they do not accept the Rabbanut on any level, which is fine. Everyone has to go with their posek. And people are going to ask me, and I'm going on that level that I trust the people that I'm asking. Okay? And when you say, yeah, but they have to accept that, okay, so it's not like a black hole. Oh my gosh, they need to accept the Rabbanut of Eilat. They need to accept the Rabbanut of Tel Aviv. So first of all, to me, that doesn't send a red light like, they eat treif in Eilat, and they eat treif. I see them shech the pigs in Tel Aviv. I don't like it all scared that, oh my gosh, they must accept for another Rabbanut. It's clearly treif. I don't look at Rabbanut that way. Oh yeah, but maybe there's some, okay, let's see if there is a rule like this that they are bound by, which I think there may be a rule that what leniency that I don't accept do they have to rely on? Fine, me too, so I'll call up, but it's not like a mystery. I'll call Rav Morsi up, and we'll discuss it. And, I should have an answer by next week. Now, we have to finish up. We got to just about I thought I'd cover tonight. But I'm fine with this pace as long as, of course, this is not going to be a 3-week series. This is going to be a Ne'ev Esrim Shana series, I think. Okay? Which is all fine with me, just as long as everyone is good with this pace. Because everyone's fine going through it and having questions and dealing with it as we move along. Okay, but next week's going to be fun because we have to have a new profession for some of our ladies here. Because if you look at 2C as the status of a mashkicha, a lady mashkia. So we have to get to that next week because we give you some good professional opportunities available for all of you. Erev Tov, always a pleasure.